Hello everyone, we're with Carolina Nizza, Head of Sustainability at Statkraft in Venice. Statkraft is a leading company in hydropower and Europe's largest generator of renewable electricity. Carolina, tell us more about Statkraft.
Yes, thank you, and thank you for inviting me. Statkraft is, as you said, the leading producer of renewable energy in Europe. It was born over 140 years ago in Norway as the main hydropower company in Norway and has expanded ever since across the world, investing in renewables and promoting an energy transition with clean energy.
Thank you, Carolina. So we've seen recently in the news that renewable energy overtook coal as the world's leading source of electricity in the first half of this year, which is an amazing achievement. And my question for you today is, do you see this continuing? And what are our biggest challenges in the energy transition?
So there's a lot of signs to be optimistic at the moment on the energy transition. The EIA has just recently announced that we're going to be reaching 45% of renewable energy production by 2030, and that's in 5 years. So that's a very good sign. Of course, there's obvious obstacles that still have to be faced, and we still have to be pragmatic in the way that we promote the energy transition. I think the three big clusters that I like to think about that are going to be very important in promoting an energy transition moving forward are the first, technology. We know that the big changes in the world and the big leaps have been brought about by technological shifts. I mean, think of what the steam engine did for the Industrial Revolution, or even during wars. I mean, historian Paul Kennedy has a beautiful book called Engineers of Victory, where he says that it was technological leaps that allowed the Allies to win World War I. So I think technology is going to be crucial in really helping us to promote a transition that is efficient and that is accessible in terms of costs. During the conference in these past 2 days, we've been listening to so many different options, from the grid to storage solutions, but the component that is always at the bottom of everything is technological shifts and technological leaps. So I think that's going to be something that we need to keep investing on, and innovation is really going to be crucial if we want to get there. And if we want to get there in the right time so that we can save our world. The second big cluster, let's say, is markets. I think it will be very important for the energy transition to work, that it becomes something that is market-led rather than just incentivized and subsidized by governments. Obviously, policy is very important, and incentives can give the right direction, and they will give the right direction, hopefully. But it is important that markets also respond to that, and that the energy transition and the fuels that we're producing, the clean energy fuels, are actually economically viable. They need to sustain themselves. They need to be accessible. They need our bills to be cheap. We can't keep subsidizing things through taxpayers' money. So we really need to push a business model and several business models that work. And we need to find the right ways to make that work. And finally, the third big thing is interconnection. And I say this both in terms of infrastructure, but also cooperation, and they go hand in hand. I mentioned the grid before. Grids are currently very underdeveloped compared to renewable energy development and production. Someone mentioned during the conference that for every dollar spent in the production of renewable energy, only 40 cents go to the development of the grid. And that creates huge bottlenecks and creates, we've seen it in Spain with a blackout. It creates grids that just don't communicate, and therefore blackouts occur. There's no flexibility. There's not enough storage. We really need to invest in the infrastructure that is going to allow us to get the energy where it's needed. And that brings me back to the point of markets as well, because when we know how to produce energy where it's cheapest and we can get that excess of supply to where the demand is highest and the energy prices are higher, that means that we're going to get the right market dynamics and the right competitive advantage for that to work. So we really need to invest more strategically in how to connect not only within countries, but also across countries, and really leverage the competitive advantages of the energy transition for it to work.
Thank you, Carolina. That was super insightful, really interesting. My sort of transition to this is, you know, we spoke a bit about obstacles and about these challenges that you mentioned. Now, sustainability as a word itself has lost its value. People say it's overinflated, it's overused, and it's become a fragmented term. My question for you here again is, what's your take on this, and how can we keep this word significant?
Well, thank you for the question. As head of sustainability, I almost hate the word as well. I think it's one of the most challenging words today. Overly used, it's almost become a bad word. But I think that's largely because sustainability has been associated for a very long time now to regulation, to tick the box lists, to, you know, a very rigid system, which is only given companies and individuals really more work and extra effort that they have to put in, and it's not really being seen as something that is actually an opportunity. So I think the challenge today, and also we've seen the world has shifted in terms of public opinion on sustainability, and there's been backlash against sustainability. So I think the challenge today is really to start shifting sustainability into the business models, and that brings me back to the market point. We need to make sustainability a competitive advantage. We need to transform the way we're thinking about it to really embed it into the processes and the decision making so that it becomes something that companies can use, not only to do good and be ethically correct, but also to bring about, you know, better efficiency, better costs, and, you know, a competitive advantage on the market. And I think something that we're going to be seeing more and more, and I was reading about this recently, you know, CSOs have now, Chief Sustainability Officers, have now become sort of resilience managers and organizational change managers. And they're really transforming the role into trying to embed it, like I said, into the business thinking. And I think if we get that right, and if that is done well, we can really change the way things are made, produced, and hopefully the way the world works, and make it a good word again.
I see what you mean, and it's so important to make sure that there's a shift in the way that we perceive sustainability in a form that it's a competitive advantage and it's the way forward.
Yeah, and I think on that point, it's going to be important to also, you know, bring in the social side. I mean, with the production of renewable energy, one of the biggest challenges is social acceptance, and the fact that, you know, communities don't actually want a solar panel or a wind farm right next to their house. And so you need to work with the communities, you need to shift people's mindset, you need to get them on board, and you need to help them understand that it can also be a benefit. It will be a benefit to them, but also, you know, you can transform projects into something that will bring a benefit to the community. The company wins, the community wins, the world and the planet and the environment win.
Thank you. And now if we talk a bit more about what we've been hearing in this conference at Vision in Venice, we've spoken a lot about geopolitics and the role geopolitics has in the climate agenda. And my question for you is, what do you believe is Europe's role in the energy transition, but maybe more broadly in the sustainability agenda?
Yeah, so I think Europe has been criticized a lot currently, you know, the Green Deal not setting targets that are rarely going to be very difficult to be achieved. And I think Europe at the moment stands in a very difficult place because we have a huge backlash coming from Trump administration on sustainability and climate change. We have China that is really going very fast on the development of the industry that is going to help promote a sustainable shift and the energy transition in particular. And Europe is sort of, you know, in this middle ground, stuck in targets that are a little bit unreasonable, and it hasn't really found its role. And I think something that was very interesting when the questions were asked during the conference was, how do we find a new strategy for Europe? How does Europe emerge from this, and how does it build its own role? And I think something that came out that was very interesting was Europe has a huge innovation potential. It has a huge thinking potential. I mean, we do create the idea. So if it went back to being the place where the questions are asked and hopefully the answers are found, and if we really start investing on the pragmatism rather than, you know, the regulation, and we risk remaining at a competitive disadvantage, and the Draghi report has shown that. We need to shift, I think, the perspective into more practicality, more concreteness, but also more innovation thinking, and help address the three issues that we mentioned before and really tackle some of them. And I think we have the potential to do that, but we need to also unite. I know it's hard to think of a single Europe because there's so many differences and there's no one size fits all, but at the same time, we are Europeans, and I think our generation is starting to feel that more and more. And I think we need to start reasoning in terms of economies of scale thinking. We need to own up to our role as Europeans, and try and take that middle ground on also, for, the geopolitical balance of the globe also depends on there being a European front as well. So I think it's going to be important for Europe to find that place and to own up to it.
And what better place to talk about this than Venice? And Carolina, my last question for you. If there would be one key takeaway from this event, what would it be?
Well, of course, Venice really rings an alarm bell on what we're trying to save here and what we're trying to do. I think going back to the point I made before, it's going to be important to take action. And I think it's important for us to really focus on not only talking, and there's so many talking shops, but really take action. I think it's now the heyday of every international relations student. We were taught and taught and taught about the prisoner's dilemma. And I think the biggest example on that has always been, failure of action on common goods, climate change. And years on, we're still seeing that today. And there's nothing more obvious than that. So I really think we need to overcome this prisoner's dilemma now. We need to realize that the planet is the ultimate common good because it's our home, and we really need to make that shift and try to integrate sustainability into the processes and change the way we do things so that we can really make a difference.
Thank you so much, Carolina, and thank you to everyone listening to us here in Venice.